What does it mean to shape a breed and leave behind a legacy? Well, in this episode, recorded live at World Dairy Expo, we sit down with Tim Baumgartner, genetics manager at Jer-Z-Boyz Ranch in Pixley, California. Tim's passion for great cows and even better people has fueled a career in genetics, mentorship, and the mission to feed the world. You'll hear how one conversation turned into an impactful career, how genetics from a dry lot changed a breed's notoriety, and why mentoring the next generation may be one of his greatest achievements yet. That and more right here today on the Up-Level Dairy Podcast. This episode is brought to you by Milc Group. Milc Group is a dairy software company that brings real-time actionable data to dairy farms around the world. They are dedicated to revolutionizing the dairy industry with their user-friendly cloud-based software. One by Milc Group is the all-in-one app that brings together all important aspects of your dairy in one place. With products such as feed and animal management software, people training, dairy facility monitoring, and scale management, Milc Group is committed to providing producers with the tools they need to succeed. So, Tim, here we are at World Dairy Expo in Madison. We're in Wisconsin. This is where you were born and raised. However, you have been in California for quite a while now, haven't you?
Yep. Yeah. I moved to California probably 15, 16 years ago. This is my county fair. Dane County, this is my county fair out there in the old barns, obviously, and we showed in the old arena over here. And so yeah, it's coming home.
Yeah.
It's a family reunion week for me, and 60,000 of my family members and best friends, if you will, are all here. So it's important to be here.
So a lot of history for you personally here in Wisconsin, including growing up on a dairy farm, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. Tell me about growing up and what kind of cattle you were involved with back then.
So I was born in a little town called Eagle, which is about an hour east of here. My parents were some of the very first red and white breeders back in the 60s when it was still unpopular and the thing not to do. And they started buying red cows back then, and the farm that they had rented originally was a Guernsey herd, and then Dad started buying red cows, or Dad and Mom started buying red cows, and we grew up showing red and white calves when that was a sin to do, and taking red and white calves to the county fair was like, and then the first time our red ones would beat the black ones, it was a dramatic thing, and the locals would be just so upset. And so yeah, it was quite the experience, and a lot of good memories. I remember there's times when my mom would take a string of 20 head to the national show, which was in Elkhorn at that time, by herself, and one or two of us little kids that are 4, 5, 6 or whatever, and she did all that herself, clipped them and whatever, and showed them, and and us kids just run around the fairgrounds, and, we'd come back every 3 hours. I need a quarter, or I need, all that fun stuff. But that's a different time.
But some great memories of growing up with cattle.
Yep.
And you really developed a love for good cows, didn't you?
Yep. Yeah. I, ever since I was a little kid, Mom she'd always tell people that if I could never find him, he'd be in the barn. Always, by the calves or whatever. And, she says, but your brother, he'd be out there by the tractors. So they knew at an early age that, he's going to be the cow guy, and that guy's going to be the tractor guy. And she never talked about my sister and what she wanted, but playing with dolls, I suppose. But
Oh, so the love for cattle was always in you, and a passion that really developed for genetics, and that led you on a path to pursue that as a career, right?
yeah, it's an interesting genetics, and the whole cow thing. It's all I've known. It's all I've ever done. I can remember being in college, sitting with Brian Benke, and having one of those heart-to-heart conversations about what are you going to do? And I think Brian asked me, I don't know. This cow thing is like, I don't know. He's like, dude, it's in your blood. You're going to be with cows. It's just in you. Don't even try to not be part of cows. So, you learn cows, you learn judging, you learn all that stuff. You get, you build careers on that around cows in some degree. And the path that I got to where I am today is interesting in itself, if you will, because I started out, my goal when I went to college, I decided, I'm going to go work for an AI company. That was my goal. So I graduated college and went home, and my dad said, "Oh, we're going to sell the cows. What do you want to do with yours?" Oh. So I had like 30 days to find a barn to rent so that I could keep my cows. So I'm like, I don't want to sell them. Those are my babies, whatever, stuff like that, typical kid. And found a really nice barn right in the middle of Waukesha, milked 35, 40 cows. It was just a cute little barn, and wonderful landlords that allowed me to rent the house and the barn and the pasture.
And it was full of little red and white cows at the time?
Full of red and white cows. It gave me the opportunity to do it my way, to set some goals, and I wanted to have some All-Americans, and we accomplished that goal. So we had like an All-American calf finally, and then it's like, oh, well, now I want to have an All-American milk cow. I'm like, that's my next goal. Well, I was fortunate enough that I'm probably the only person still to have bred the All-American and Reserve All-American in milking form. So that was kind of cool.
Wow, that is
and so you got to do some of that. We got into some embryo export stuff, and a couple bulls into AI, which was like fascinating to me because that was a whole brand new era of, wow, I didn't ever think I'd do that. And so, yeah, it was a fun 6, 7, 8 years of farming, but it was a tough time. And milk back then was like $9 or something. And, tough to milk 30 cows and not get a milk check, kind of a deal. So sold the cows and then went to work for CMEX. So I got my career as an AI person. Developed the mating program for CMEX USA, which was called XLGM. And did that for, 6, 7, 8 years. After that happened, then I went to analyze cows through AAA animal analysis, did that for 10 years or so. And that's what took me to the West Coast.
And then you ended up staying there.
Yep.
So do you remember, you're a Wisconsin kid, right?
Yep.
You grew up on the dairy farms here. Yep. And do you remember one of your first trips to California? What did you think of California dairy when you first got there?
The very first time I went to California, I think I was classifying cows part-time. And you land on the plane and you get out there. It's like, oh, I'm in California, the land of sunshine and all that stuff. And you're driving down the road, and I remember seeing these fields and had these little ridges, and I'm like, what are they doing? Couldn't figure it out. So finally, when I got to whatever dairy I needed to be at, I'm like, what's the deal with the ridges in the field? You're going to plant that, aren't you? Well, yeah, but what's the deal with the ridges? Well, the ridges are where the corn seed goes. Okay, then we have to flood it. What do you mean you have to flood it? Well, it don't rain out here, so we have to make it rain, and so we just flood. Oh, I had no idea. I'm like, but Mother Nature makes it rain. I mean, it was so foreign to me, and I had no clue that, so now you drive around and you see these guys, they'll clean a field off, they'll plant it, they'll flood it, like 4 days later, here's a corn crop. It's like, oh my. It's amazing. It's just the technology and the way that they do things out there is so different from what I grew up with, where you're dependent upon Mother Nature to make it rain. And, we got to cut hay today because it's going to rain tomorrow. Or we got to do this and, get that baled quick because it's going to rain tomorrow.
So your eyes were open to a whole different way of farming, a different way of dairying. And along the way, you ended up meeting a gentleman who ended up really kind of changing the trajectory of your career and of your life, Gary DeGraff.
Yeah, I did. So while I was analyzing cows, I got a call from Jim Sarbacher at the time, who was managing AAA. and said, I need you to go to this Jersey herd and help catch them up because the gentleman that's taking care of them is falling behind. He's been ill a little bit, and I need you to go and catch them back up. Okay. Well, so I called and said, hey, I'm going to be out this week or whatever it was. And so we went out and we got them all caught up. And I can't tell you how many they did, but it was a load of them. And Gary, we got done and Gary said, do you want to just do this every time you come out here? Sure. So that's what started that. And that was probably 12, 13 years ago, but I've been going back ever since, and now I'm there.
And there was a conversation where you and Gary were walking pens one day.
I don't know how you found out about this stuff. You must have good investigators. So Gary and I were walking along the backside of the dairy in front of the maternity barn and just chatting about whatever. And he just kind of turned to me and said, I need to find the next herd bull. Okay. And I said, oh, all right, what? And he's like, do you have any ideas of what you want to do or where? And I said, well, we can go up to Hillmar and see all the famous Jersey herds up there. And I said, the other option is to go to Tillamook where the rest of the famous Jersey herds are and see what they got. And so we scheduled some time. And so we went to the Hillmar herds and kind of toured around and like, yeah, I don't know if there's anything there. And we scheduled the next trip the next time I was going north. We met up. I picked him up at the Portland airport. We drove over to Tillamook and visited all the herds out there and found a couple that were, and on the way back, then we went, we were just talking because the radio obviously doesn't work because it's Highway 6 in the middle of the forest. And so we started talking about, he says, well, tell me what you thought. Well, I was just kind of hemming and hawing. He's like, just tell me what you thought. Like, bang, no. You don't want them. They're just not they're not what you want. Well, what am I going to do? I need to find the next herd bull. I said, well, why don't you make your own? He's like, what? I said, why don't you make your own? And he's like, well, I said, I got a plan. Don't worry about it. I'll figure it out.
Did you really have a plan?
No, I had no plan at all, but it changed the conversation because it was heading down a path of like, so I said, I'll figure it out. Well, so I got him back to the Portland airport. He jumps on a plane and obviously he's home in an hour and, and I'm stuck driving home for the next 12 hours. And I'm like, you get about halfway home or you get back across the Oregon-California line. It's like, I know what to do. So I got home finally the next day. I jumped on the internet and I pulled up the index list from USDA at the time. And none of Gary's cows were registered. They had made a choice to not continue with registration at that time. It was just wasn't in their short-term plans. And anyway, so I pulled up this index list, the grade index list that USDA used to publish. Sorted it out for the California cows, sorted out all the crossbreds that are on the list, and lo and behold, Gary DeGraff owns 50% of the jerseys on the high index list. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah. So you didn't know that. Did he know that?
No, they had no clue. They had no clue. So then I started digging into this, and here's 2 cows on the list that are 100 pounds of PTA fat. So I called Dick Smith at ABS, who I just met a couple months earlier, and I said, how valuable is 100 pounds of fat in the world of Jersey? Who? What? Where? There isn't such a thing. And I said, well, there's 2 of them in California and 1 hurt. Well, I'm going to be on the first plane tomorrow. I need to see them. Okay. I said, well, how about I go look first to make sure that you need to fly out here? So I called up Gary and I said, when I come down the next time, I want to see 22843 and 25062. Why? I said, they're 100 pounds of fat. I just want to make sure they're nice cows. And I'll tell you why when I get there. So Gary pulls them up. Oh, 22843. That's Mario's favorite cow. I'm like, oh, she's all right then. Mario being the herdsman at the time. Like, she'll be all right. So I get there and we go find the 2 cows. The 25062 is there. And she's kind of like, yeah, she's all right. She's, kind of big uddered and whatever, but milks like crazy. And we go to the holding area because the other cow's in the parlor and there she is. She's kind of wet because the the flush thing had just happened, and it's like she just shines, and it's like there's the sunlight. Or like, boom, here's this cow. Like, oh my Lord, like this is an excellent cow. It's like, you got to get this cow scored. You got to get this cow registered. And I told you can sell bulls and AI from this cow, both of these cows today. Really? I said, you wanted me to find you your next herd bull. That cow and that cow will do that. And that started the whole thing. We got 6 cows registered. Dick Smith came out, wrote 4 or 5 contracts within a month. And it was just a snowball effect.
So in that short order, Gary DeGrasse herd, Jer-Z-Boyz, became a herd that wasn't on the radar to suddenly having these cows that were on the top list for butterfat and for, production, but also high scoring cows as well. And they were just out roaming the dry lot with the rest of the herd. Huh?
Absolutely. It's one of the most, to me, it's one of the most fascinating stories, because within that short while, like we registered those cows, and as soon as they hit the list, the phone started ringing, because they were now registered and they showed up on an index list, and every AI company started calling. And within a year or 2 years, we had like 200 contracts made, and there's like 50 bulls that left to go to AI, and it was wild, and it was absolutely crazy. And I mean, it just kept coming. They were flushing cows. We're registering more. We're trying to find these new ones. Genomics comes along in the middle there and upsets the whole apple cart. And because it changed how you did things, obviously. And then Select calls and says, we noticed what you did for Jer-Z-Boyz. We want you to come work for us.
Because at this time, you actually ended up working full-time for Gary at Jer-Z-Boyz.
Up to that point, I was still analyzing cows as my full-time career, and then making sure that all the registrations that needed to happen, all of the flushing that needed to happen, and I was doing all of that kind of on the side just to make sure that it kept coming. So these people were calling me to contract cows for Gary, which I really had nothing to do with, but other than just keeping it organized. So it was fun. I enjoyed it.
Oh, so it sounds like it developed into full-time work, really.
Yeah, it really did.
You had an opportunity to go somewhere else, but then you ended up joining Jer-Z-Boyz full-time.
Yep. Like I had mentioned, Select or Herbie Lutz had called, and he says, we've been paying attention to what you're doing there, and we need to expand our Jersey program. We would like you to be our person on the West Coast and be a full-time person for us to help market seam and help find bulls. Herbie can't be flying back and forth all the time. And so for a 5 or 6, 7 year period, I worked for Select full-time. And of course, what happened, because I had to focus my attention to what was happening at Select, then things slowed down at the farm because I wasn't able to just give that much time to it. And so it fell backwards a little bit. And Jeff Ziegler called it like in July, said, during Expo, we want to sit down with you, and didn't tell me why. So for like the next 60 days, I'm like, what did I do wrong? I'm calling Herbie like once a week. What's going on? What? I had no clue. So I met with Jeff and Chuck Sadler, and like, we would like you to move to Ohio. We know you love digging into stuff and researching stuff and finding things and helping us develop. We want to develop some new things, but we'd like you to do it from the Ohio office. Okay. So that December, I jumped on a plane, went back there early, started looking around for houses and different things. And the weather was almost like this when I got there. It was just nice, and it was kind of warm, and it was like, yeah, okay, I can deal with this. Over that next 10-day period, the weather had gone from nice to like -10 and a 30-mile-an-hour wind, and it's like, oh my, no. I mean, I made my mind up before I left it. It ain't gonna happen. I just got to figure out how to tell them I'm not coming. And anyway, so I went back home, and I talked to Gary the next time I went down to visit, or Gary and Daniel. I said, I'm not going to take that job with Select, because they had known. I had told them that we want you to just come work full-time for us. Okay. I mean, it was just that easy. Like, good, done. So I called Select finally. Ziegler kept calling. What do you do? When are you moving? What's I finally just said, I'm gonna quit. What, which made you feel good because it's like, oh, you do value me. That's cool. And
Aw.
so yeah, and then I started March of 2017. I moved to Tulare, started working full time there, and we just built a monster.
So in this tenure that you have been full time at Jer-Z-Boyz, really managing the genetic program, you guys have made a few marks in the Jersey books. What are a couple of the standout cows in your mind that really represent the Jer-Z-Boyz impact? And speak to that from both the herd level, but also the industry level.
Ooh, I think what we're most proud of, 25062, the cow that originally was the one that we discovered. Still today, that maternal line is flourishing. 59010 comes to mind because she's the very first homozygous polled Jersey of the breed to be the #1 JPI female. So that was cool. Her daughter, her polled daughter, sired by Jaden, a bull that we sent to Select, became the #1 polled female after her, followed this. So like there's all this stuff that's happening and the different things. The bull Goals P follows that same family, and he was the #1 polled daughter proven bull at one point, and he's now a sire of sons and grandsons at Select Sires, uh, bringing things forward. And so it's cool to see all that and to think that by me making one or two little decisions here is making an impact now that helps to do things to change the trajectory of what's happening in the Jersey breed, because this poll thing is just like wildfire. So it's cool that I had something to do with it. When I started there, there was a sale in Ontario. I said, hey, there's a sale at 10 o'clock. Watch lot number 16 or whatever number was. And I said, he's like, okay. I said, well, if you don't bring a lot of money. And I just kind of left it, thinking, well, he ain't going to bid. He's not going to remember it. And so I got back from the heifer ranch or whatever we had to do that morning. And I said, hey, did you watch that sale? I did. What happened? Oh, I bought that cow. Well, what'd she bring? Well, like 7,000 Canadian. What? Like, I'm thinking like, she's like a $3,000 cow or something. And it's like, well, you said you wanted her. So I just bought her. It's like, anyway, so that was like 2018, I think it was. It was like the first year I was there. And Anna's still there today. She's now 10 years. She's like 10 years, 12 years old. We flushed her twice this summer. She's embryos just left to go to Zimbabwe from her. She's got embryos going to Ecuador, I think it is. And I think we'll do her next to Brazil. And so here's a cow that, I bought because she was a high component cow and just something unique and different, and is still impacting the herd today. Her granddaughter's like the #7 high JPI pure female of the breed. So it's like, good for Anna. Like my favorite cow.
Oh, so you've had some pretty special cows that you've gotten an opportunity to work with. And you've also gotten to work with some pretty special people, including the DeGraff family.
I'm really fortunate in that Gary, when I went there full time, Gary's like, I want to kind of slow down. I want to step away from the day-to-day of the farm. He loves the genetics and he loves all that. And it was tough for him to like, if you want me to do this, you just need to trust me. Daniel's forte is more about the big picture, the 30,000 feet look, if you will. And so I'm very fortunate in that he just stays up there at 30,000 feet and doesn't come down here and watch over my shoulder a lot. And they give me a lot of latitude, a lot of flexibility, and I just do my thing.
Again, looking at the breed perspective, a lot of the work that you've done in the last 15 years or so, Tim, It's really changed the Jersey breed.
Well, yeah, I don't want to, that's not my goal to brag about me because that's not my style. But I do believe it has the Jersey Boys logo or brand, if you will, has an impact on the Jersey breed because Gary spent his career when he transferred into jerseys from Holsteins of focused on components. And he line bred those to the made line, if you will. And so even today, our herd is still a 5% fat, 4% protein herd. And like, I'll be honest, I've tried to just put more flow into those cows to back the fat down and increase the protein just to balance the needs for the milk plants, if you will. But that fat test does not move. I mean, it's like locked in there, and I don't, and that's cool. I like that because now I've added more volume to the cows themselves, plus the components that go with it. So the impact that we have, I think, is when our genetics hit the market, which was really a fluid breed at that time. They helped to balance those cows back out and add some components to the high flow that the Jersey index was focused at for the longest time. So there's an impact, and we're focused now on cold, obviously, and A2, which is important coming in the future, and I see that because now when we export embryos, most of the people that call like, well, we want them A2 and polled because we know that you're making them.
Mm,
Okay, cool.
yeah.
I like
So
that.
you're making them made to order.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I like it. People are always surprised when they call and say, hey, we want to buy some members. What do you got in your tank? No, we don't work that way. What do you mean? We milk 5,000 cows. Tell me what you want. I'll make them in the next 30 days. There's probably 50 cows today that will qualify based on your needs. So having 5,000 milk cows is really cool because you call today, I'll send them to you tomorrow.
You have your own little playground every day, don't you?
I have my own little playground, is exactly right. Like I said, Daniel gives me the latitude, longitude, whatever the term is, the proper term is. He stays out of my way. I stay out of his way. I do the genetics. He does the finances. It's perfect.
And you talk about really that genetic area being one that you're so passionate about. You're also a guy that just cares a lot about cows and taking good care of cows. And when we look at, some of the technology beyond genetic technology that you brought into the farm, it was actually here at World Dairy Expo a couple of years ago, you stumbled upon a California-based company that has also made a difference on the feed side for
Yep.
Jer-Z-Boyz.
Yep. 2 years, I think, yeah, 2 years ago now at here, I ran across a booth out there in the exhibition hall for it's called the Milc Group. And they had a feed program that appealed to me. The one we were working with was a challenge, and it needed to be updated, and the updated costs were like, oh, that's going to be crazy, and to get everything modernized, if you will, and so I walked over and said, tell me about this one feed. She's like, well, it's all modern, it's all iCloud based, and it's this and it's this, and it's all simple to use, and here's a little bit of what it does. And I'm like, good, can you be out in a week? What do you mean? Well, I need you to show this to the people that make the decision. So I went back home and I said, oh, there's somebody coming out in a week to show a new feed program to you. I think you're going to like it. We switched within 30 days. And it's simple and it's easy to use. And if we've got a problem, it's a simple text to whoever the mechanic is, so to speak. And it's like, hey, this went wrong. Oh, yep, it's fixed.
And that's one feed.
That's
from
one
Milc
feed.
Group.
Yep. If we need to change pen counts or something on the fly, you just pull out your phone and it's, oh, this pen now has got 300 or 30 more cows in it, and it's there.
There you go. And it's now one thing you don't have to worry about so that you can keep your focus
Yep.
on the place that you like to put it. And that's on those cows, isn't it?
Yep. Yeah, it made it so much easier because the old feed program. I mean, they're coming in all the time trying to refresh the little handheld thing and make it, and then they're complaining because it doesn't do this and it. So it takes you away from mating cows or doing what you needed to do, and it's like, okay, I'll come out there, let's see what the problem is. But now it's like it's very rare that they pull one of the iPads out and say it doesn't work. And it's usually, if it does, it's because, oh, I forgot what my email password was. Okay, I can't help you with that. You're on your own, you're on your own.
Oh, but a technology that has allowed you to put your mind and your time on what you love best, and that's working with and developing these good cows and the bulls as well that have, as we talked about, made an impact on the breed. And when you look ahead, you mentioned a couple of things. You mentioned A2, you mentioned poll genetics, and also maintaining those high levels of components. But where do you think the Jersey breed goes from here?
I think that gets to be a loaded question because there's a lot of ways to approach that. The components are obviously important because it's a component-based pricing system in the U.S. for most of the country. So having the components, which then kind of gets into the genetics, which then helps to populate, is important. My concerns come in the fact that over the last 10 years, CDCB, USDA, and the like have gotten so focused on this moderate sized cow and building formulas to find this feed efficient cow, which is fine because that's based on the needs to fix the Holstein problem. The problem with those formulas, the net merit, cheese merit formula, in my estimation, is that they are all one formula fits all kind of a model. The Jersey cow does not need to be made smaller. She does not need to be a little more compact or eat less feed to produce more milk. So I've kind of stopped chasing JPI, if you will, because there are flaws in that formula, because I can see it in the results in our production records on these young cows. So we're actually trying to put a little more frame and a little more capacity back into our genetics so that we can take those cows forward, because in order for the Jersey cow to compete, she has to compete against the black and white cow, which is the dominant breed in the USA, and that's always going to be. But Holstein has spent 10 years focused on fixing their fertility, fixing their components, reducing their body size, if you will. So they've made that cow more efficient and kept her productivity, raised her components, and made her more fertile. Now the Jersey has to compete with something that's more like her. So if the Jersey can't be more competitive and maintain their size, they're not going to go forward. And I think that's why we see so many herds in the USA now adding Holstein genetics, blending Holstein genetics into their Jersey programs. Is because they need to get a little more flow. They need to get just a little bigger cow with a bigger beef check at the end of the day. It's a changing environment. Jersey's going to need to recognize that they're maybe not the most efficient cow anymore. They're not the USA's green cow like they were 10 years ago when they had that wonderful promotion that moved them from 9,000 population to 12 million, whatever it is, and moved them right up. And that growth was phenomenal. And they've kind of capped off now because they've kind of forgot about, we got to keep promoting. So, yeah, they need to change.
Mm. And we think about this impact of a breed. We think about impact of cows and bulls. But, people have an impact too. And it's funny because I have ran into some people that you've had an impact on recently. What do you see as your own impact? What do you see as the legacy of Tim Baumgartner?
Oof. That gets to be a touching subject because you don't ever think of yourself as somebody that goes out to change the world. That's not how I was raised. But, I grew, and I told you this is my county fairgrounds. And every year, ever since I was little, we would come to the World Dairy Expo. And I can remember being 12 years old and helping show strings out there, or 14 or 15 or whatever it was. And those people that were the leaders, the Ken Empes, the Bert Stewarts, all of those people were here, and so you're the little kid that's throwing hay in there to do this, and they're like, don't do it like that, do it like this, or when you lead her, do it like this, and those were my mentors. And one of the things that I always tell myself, and they've told me this, it's okay to pay it forward. And so, that sticks in the back of my mind because I remember them giving me that advice as a little kid, and here's me, a little kid from a broken home, and they're like, oh, he's such a quiet little kid, and they're helping me out, so you get to meet some of those famous people and that everybody talks about and admires and adores, and and you go up and you say, hey, how are you, and they're like, how do you know him? Oh, it's just Howard Binder. It's whatever. It's, whoever it is. But they were kind enough to me. So now today, or as I go around and, the young man that led the champion Guernsey last night, I've known him since he was 9 years old, and to watch them grow up and become the people that they are today, and the struggles that family, they're just trying to survive in the tough world of dairy, if you will, and being out there and encouraging them. And his dad last night, we sat up in the stands in the corner, and the show's down here, and we sat up in the other corner, and we're sitting there, and I said, come on, he didn't even want to go up there. Let's go. You need to see this. Cause I'm like, I know this gal's going to be like, so we sat up there, and so Mark says, and my champion is going to be the H cow, and reserve is going to be the 3-year-old. And Dennis, the dad, he just turns and he gave me the biggest hug, and he says, oh my God, I can't thank you enough. He says, never in a million years would I have thought this day would come. And he says, you're such a big impact on my boys and what's happening today. So that, and it's all of those kids when you see it, and it doesn't matter which kid it is, and I was just sitting out there talking to another young guy 20 minutes ago before I came over here, and we're chatting about this and that, and I said, what do you want to do? And he says, well, we want to kind of get into boarding cows. And I said, why don't you get into boarding dogs? It's got to be less stressful. And so we chatted about it. He says, yeah, we've talked about that and the different things, and the young man in Washington that you mentioned earlier, and but they're wonderful people. They're tremendous families. They're good-hearted. They're honest people, and so you just know that when you meet those people, you just want to advise, support, encourage, because that's the people that are going to move this thing forward 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and continue to make the agriculture industry better, because we are, and I told you this when we did this before, that we are responsible for feeding the world. We've got to feed the world because nobody else is going to take care of them. So if by me mentoring some young people that they can carry that forward and make it better 10 years, 20 years, 50 years from now, that's what I want on my.
That's the legacy, huh?
Yep.
And that charge of feeding the world is one you take pretty seriously, isn't it?
Yeah, I do. There's no secret. I told you we grew up in a broken home, and it was tough, and and every kid will tell you the same story about the hand-me-down clothes and everything that goes up in that era, if you will. But I remember that, in those nights when it's hot dogs and macaroni and cheese, because that's all there was. And you see that going on today in all these countries. And so us sending embryos to these odd countries, knowing that, oh, that's going to hopefully make a calf that's going to turn into a cow that's going to produce milk to help feed a family. Like Gary sent some semen to some country on one of his church mission things, if you will, and the goal for them was that would help to increase the dairy population so that every family could have a cow for their home. But the deal was, if you were given a cow for your home, that cow had to live in your house at night, or otherwise the poachers would take it.
Oh my gosh.
That's how tough that was. And it's like, it's sad when you hear stories like that, and it's like, oh, that can't be real. And these countries we send, like I said, we send these embryos to these different countries, and it's like, oh, I can't wait to hear these stories. And, we sent some heifers to, some little island. It was like the first Jersey heifers that ever went there. And I'm like, oh, this rich component milk that this community is going to get now. And that's touching to me. That's what this is about. And I hope everybody that watches this and listens to this takes a little of that to heart and steps back, look at the bigger picture. What's going on this week is really, really cool, but it's so much bigger than this. There's people here from all over the world. You don't know their story. It's important to get these stories out. And I think what you do in sharing these stories with all the people that you interview and you visit with, because I listen to a lot of those, and the stories and the advice that they bring out, it's more than just, just give them 3 pounds of corn and 2 pounds of this. It's them telling their story of, this is what impacts our dairy and our personal lives to make it better. And so those people that carry that forward, and the people that listen to that and hear it and take it to heart, that's powerful.
Well, thank you, Tim. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
that.
Oh, thank you for allowing me to do this.
You just heard from Tim Baumgartner of Jer-Z-Boyz Ranch in California. His story is proof that genetics can shape a breed, but it's people who move it forward and drive continuous improvement to make a worldwide difference. Join us back for the next episode to hear from Jer-Z-Boyz founder Gary DeGroff. Thanks for listening to the Uplevel Dairy Podcast. I'm Peggy Coffeen, and don't forget to follow, rate, and share this podcast wherever you get your podcasts. As always, keep on growing, keep on learning, and up-leveling your dairy. This episode is brought to you by Milc Group. Milc Group is a dairy software company that brings real-time actionable data to dairy farms around the world. They are dedicated to revolutionizing the dairy industry with their user-friendly cloud-based software. One by Milc Group is the all-in-one app that brings together all important aspects of your dairy in one place. With products such as feed and animal management software, people training, dairy facility monitoring, and scale management, Milc Group is committed to providing producers with the tools they need to succeed.